Okay, part two. So, in the books that come after The House on Marshland, which was the second book, descending figure in Ararat, Glick's poems become much more personal, confessional. She explores the consequences of the death of her infant sister, how her mother was unable to adequately love her two living daughters after such a loss, the sense of deprivation and hunger she and her sister felt growing up, competing for limited scraps of affection which made them enemies instead of allies. In later works, starting with The Triumph of Achilles in 1985, Glick becomes more and more interested in mythology, both biblical and Greek mythic stories. She tackles the same subjects, loss, jealousy, marriage, and family, but through the lens of archetype characters and their legendary stories. In Meadowlands and Vita Nova in 2006 and 2009, she relies extensively on the mythologies of the Odyssey, speaking with the voices of Penelope, Circe. Using the well-known structures of the mythic seems to create a distance for her, a separation between the author and her subjects that was not in her earlier, more autobiographical works. She makes the mythic characters work for her, though, bending the mythic structure to her own will. For example, Odysseus wants grilled chicken for dinner in Penelope's song. Glick is very talented at mining the familiar, but then inserting these amazing, insightful fragments that seem to penetrate straight to the heart. One example is from First Memory. I thought that pain meant I was not loved. It meant I loved. While her poems are spare, many of them grim and haunting. But though the words themselves are often simple, the feelings they have the power to evoke are anything but. My favorite poems of hers are the ones that are clearly autobiography, that lack the veil of the mythic or the metaphorical. So Ariat from 1990 is my favorite book. It's the most literal volume, and the poems take on an almost narrative quality. It's here that the reader is privy to the experiences that shaped Glick's life. Perhaps the most startling and most revealing aspect of Ararat is Glick's unflinching gaze at the shortcomings of her own parents, and the suggestion that the wound caused by their emotional neglect is her deepest, most damaging wound. My second poem, Appearances, is from Ariat. So the first stanza, I'm going to go stanza by stanza. When we were children, my parents had our portraits painted, then hung them side by side over the mantel where we couldn't fight. I'm the dark one, the older one. My sister's blonde, the one who looks angry because she can't talk. So the pictures hung over the mantel where they couldn't fight is the first hint that the title Appearances refers to the differences between the reality and the idealized images in the paintings. In the portraits, the sisters do not fight, which means in real life, they do. The dark one versus the sister who's blonde, the speaker is pointing out their differences. First, their differences in appearances. The speaker calls herself dark, which seems to be about more than hair color, because she could have said brunette or black hair, but instead she only says dark, which may also refer to her personality or something inside her. Stanza 2, it never bothered me not talking. That hasn't changed much. My sister's still blonde, not different from the portrait, except we're adults now. We've been analyzed. We understand our expressions. So the not talking at the beginning of stanza 2 is a second contrast. The sister loves to talk. The speaker doesn't mind if she doesn't. Stanza 3. My mother tried to love us equally, dressed us in the same dresses. She wanted us perceived as sisters. That's what she wanted from the portraits. You need to see them hanging together, facing one another. Separated, they don't make the same statement. You wouldn't know what the eyes were fixed on. They'd seem to be staring into space. So the beginning of stanza 3 packs the most punch with tried to love us equally. The key word here being tried, which means she failed, so we know right off that the mother doesn't love them the same and that the kids knew that. dressing them in the same dresses, again, appearances, wanted us perceived as sisters. So what matters to the mother is that they look the part. Just like the painting, it's the image that matters, not the reality. This is emphasized as she goes on. That's what she wanted from the portraits, to get this idealized image. And the idea of the portraits needing to be together, just like the sisters need to be together for their identities to be clear. Though they're opposites, a study in contrast, they still need to be together to be understood completely. You can't understand the speaker without her sister as a foil. Stanza 4. This was the summer we went to Paris, the summer I was 7. Every morning we went to the convent. Every afternoon we sat still, having the portraits painted, wearing green cotton dresses, the square neck marked with a ruffle. Monsieur Davanzo added the flesh tones, my sister's ruddy, mine faintly bluish. To amuse us, Madame Davanzo hung cherries over our ears. So here they go to the convent every morning while they're on vacation. So you get the idea that this is a very religious family. The key part of this stanza is the flesh tones that the painter adds. The sister's is ruddy, and the speaker's is very pale. So the sister seems to be depicted as very alive. She has angry eyes, she wants to speak, she has ruddy skin, she's blonde, she's full of life, whereas the speaker is only dark, and her skin being faintly bluish sounds that she might even be sickly, pale, and unhealthy. Moving on to stanza 5. It was something I was good at, sitting still, not moving. I did it to be good, to please my mother, to distract her from the child that died. I wanted to be child enough. I'm still the same, like a toy that can stop and go, but not change direction. So in this stanza, we understand that the speaker is altering herself. She's altering her body, her actions, her thoughts for another, her mother, but also in a manipulative way because she's trying to get something out of it. She wants her mother's love. She's trying to distract her. The next line, when it's talking about the child that died is all by itself on its own line, and it is the only line in the poem that is indented. I think this is to set it apart because the mother's child that dies is very important in the speaker's narrative. I'm going down a few lines, like a toy that can stop and go but not change direction. Here the speaker admits her longing to be enough for her mother in childhood but also as an adult, confessing that she is still as stuck in the destructive direction as she was at 7. Stanza 6. Anyone can love a dead child, love an absence. My mother's strong, she doesn't do what's easy. She's like her mother, she believes in family and order. She doesn't change her house, just freshens the paint occasionally. Sometimes something breaks, gets thrown away, but that's all. She likes to sit there on the blue couch, looking up at her daughters, at the 2 who lived. She can't remember how it really was, how any time she ministered to one child, loved that child, she damaged the other. You could say she's like an artist with a dream, a vision. Without that, she'd have been torn apart. So, at the beginning of this stanza, the mother being strong and not doing what's easy, it echoes how the mother tried to love the sisters equally. So the speaker is acknowledging that the mother at least tried. She didn't accomplish it, but she made an effort. A little further down, where the mother likes to look up at the 2 daughters, and then she doesn't remember how it really was. Here is where the speaker's judgment returns. The mother still idealizes the sisters and their childhoods, choosing the false memory of the portraits versus the more painful truth. How anytime she ministered to one child, ministers reflects these religious overtones, how they go to the convent every day earlier. And The next line, she damaged the other. So here we are understanding that the speaker is the damaged one. The mother, who is like an artist with a dream. So this echoes the work of the painter and the mother constructing her own reality. She would have been devastated to know the truth, to realize the damage that she'd done to her own children. So she kind of has to have this dream, this illusion. Stanza 7. We were like the portraits, always together. You had to shut out one child to see the other. That's why only the painter noticed. A face already so controlled, so withdrawn, and too obedient. The clear eyes saying, if you want me to be a nun, I'll be a nun. This is a really powerful ending. The speaker is only 7, and already the deprivation she has experienced has made her desperate to please. So she does what she is expected to instead of doing what she wants to. And we know for certain now that the speaker is the one that's been the most damaged because she has been shut out. She's dark. The painter realizes she's withdrawn. And the last line, if you want me to be a nun, I'll be a nun. The nun here implies self-sacrifice, complete abnegation of self to please another, whereas the nun, that would be God, but here the speaker is willing to do anything to be loved the most.